Today we're talking about seeking your parents' approval, or rather, what happens when you stop seeking your parents' approval. Now, I speak a lot about individuality. Individuality plays a very important role in this process. Now, for a lot of us, we cannot relate to this because we have good relationships or healthy relationships with our parents. For a lot of us, we don't. And it causes a lot of problems. It is like a chain that we wear around our neck and we don't realize it. Or for some of us, we realize it and it's hindering us. And we want to release it. Well, in this video, I want to give you a different perspective, a different way of looking at things. First off, you must reclaim your power. That's right. You must take authority in your life, in yourself, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. The ability to make decisions without having to factor in your parents' feelings or opinions about this decision. Now, let me just issue this disclaimer. I am again not saying, as I've said many times in other videos, saying that you need to disregard how your parents see you. But by reclaiming your power, you disregard their power over how you see yourself. Big difference. Everybody, including your parents, outside of yourself, is always going to have an opinion about you. However, it only matters what your opinion about you is. You must reclaim your power and build a boundary where your parents' opinions and views dictates your moves, or how you move, or what the next move in your life is. That is all about owning and taking authority of your grown, individualized self, which you have the right to do. Now, you must kill the glitch in your system, meaning your parents' fears are not facts. I've said this before. Different generations were raised in different times and environments that differ from yours. Your decision making has to come from your own blueprint, first of all, and then your surrounding environments, the circumstances based on your decision making, how you arrive to that intersection in life, whether it's a physical one, whether it's a spiritual one, an emotional one. Circumstances brought you there. When your thoughts and emotions have a foundation in your parents' fears, that is not really you making an authentic decision or choice for yourself. Now, true, some of those fears we can rely on because some of them are substantial and still valid today. So we can definitely base some choices and decisions on those that are specific to our family structures. I get that. However, when you have to do that every time, and you don't have a sound, stable structure for basing your own choices and decision making from, or you've arrived to something that actually makes you fearful and you haven't inherited it, is when you start to recognize your own barometer for your life decisions based on your circumstances in the current situation that your decision making arrived from. Now, stop being a guest in your own life. That is what you are when you're walking around always concerned about how others see you what others think. Even your parents are extensions outside of you, so they can be classified as others. I know you want to clump them in because they're your mom, your dad, your grandmother, whoever raised you, whose ever opinions are garnering ownership over your movements, over how you carry yourself, over how you express yourself, what career choices you may have had, which major you may be taking up in school, whether you want to even go to school at all. If you are not basing some of those decisions from an internal space within you that you have quieted down all of the external opinions and noises, then you are guest starring in your own life. You are playing a guest role in your own life. You're not the main character. If you are exuding main character energy, then you have to know who you are based on your own experiences. And I mean your personal experiences. You have had personal experiences even when you were in your parents' home. However something went down and you experienced it personally, that is your personal experience. That is what builds your character. That is how you should set your barometer of choice making, of life decisions, of living, of proceeding ahead. You can listen to your parents' opinions. You can definitely value them. But making decisions based on someone else's views outside of your life when they can't factor in truly how you feel. Now, you can express how you feel to a person multiple times in multiple different ways, but nobody is going to know the validity or the power of those feelings but you. So you have to learn to trust those, and don't be afraid to make decisions simply based from that. That is enough. That is your blueprint, and since this is your life, those are very valid and substantial. That is very valid and substantial information to draw a reference from. Period. Now cease paying emotional tax. You have to learn to protect your peace. Even if you're at a point where you're not ready to detach or heal from whatever issues that you're having with said mother, father, or both parents, you still need to protect your peace. Stop paying emotional tax to people who aren't even aware, or in some cases don't care, that they're causing you harm. You have to detach emotionally from the situation. It doesn't mean that you have to detach emotionally from the person. You have to detach emotionally from the situation. You have to accept the situation as it is. No matter how hurtful that may be, that is what you're going to have to do to bring about peace within yourself. Now, I understand it's a very hurtful thing to have unrequited love returned to you from a parent. However, if you have tried and it has been, years, and it seems like nothing is working, but the only common denominator when you think about that relationship is hurt to you, then at some point you're going to have to love you enough, decide that you are worthy enough to detach emotionally. You can still love that person and care about that person, but you have accepted that this is the way the relationship is. That doesn't mean that it can't change over time. In the future, it can't become better. But to be honest, for some of us, that is the situation. That relationship may never change. Some people just are who they are. Some people aren't willing to take accountability for their actions. Some people aren't willing to look at truths about themselves. Some people aren't willing to correct behavior within themselves because that means that something is wrong with them. And it's much easier to blame you. In toxic situations like that, you definitely have to detach your emotions. If you don't, then you're going to constantly be emotionally taxed, spiritually drained, and repetitively hurt. Now, this is going to sound crazy for a lot of you. However, I promise you, if you take this perception to the situation, it will make all of the other things that I've said earlier in this video become more realistic to you and become easier to do. You have to detach your parents from the title. Yep, you know how a lawyer has a title of being a lawyer. So you have expectations of the lawyer to live up to that title. A doctor, a driver, an entertainer, and so on and so on. That's the titles of what they do, who they are to the world, based on those titles. And you have certain expectations that come from that because we have been indoctrinated with expectations tied to titles. Well, with your parents, it's the same way. But nobody ever suggests to you that you need to detach them from the title of mom and dad. And remember that mom and dad are people. They are people who were children who had life experiences that has shaped them into adulthood. But for a lot of us, we forget about that because we have just associated them with mom and dad. And we expect them to behave as mom and dad. But the definition of that title, mom and dad, can be loosely translated. Because everybody's parents aren't the same. And parenting isn't the same for anybody. I don't care what your background is. Everybody has a way of raising their children. Some of it is definitely inexcusable and has nothing to do whatsoever with parenting or being fair or being kind or being loving or being unselfish. I get all of that. However, if you start to look at your mom and dad as John and Mary, you can remember that John and Mary are people. What do you even know about their childhood? How they were brought up? What kind of emotional hurts or things did they suffer in their childhood? What kind of traumatic experiences did John and Mary go through that would have brought them to be the kind of adult they are, to practice the behaviors that they practice, to reciprocate or not reciprocate the love that they do or do not give you, to be affectionate or not be affectionate, to be a helicopter parent or to be a parent that just doesn't care at all. Now, by understanding this doesn't excuse their behavior or any kind of hurts that you've received from them. And then also, all people aren't willing to talk about their issues, especially people who don't want to face them. So all parents may not be willing to share their background with you. But you remembering that they do have a background, that they were brought up in a different time, in a different manner than you. Even if they say my mama did this or my daddy did this and I'm raising my kids in the same manner, it's not the same because we're not living in the same times. So what they went to school and saw, heard, participated in is totally different than when you leave home and go to school. So it's not the same. However, in their minds, it is. What motivates that? By removing the title of mom and dad, you can see them as people and maybe be a little more empathetic to what caused them to arise to where they are as a human being. Well, I hope this helps someone because I know how hard it is to carry around hurt from a dysfunctional, a closed off relationship with a parent. Try to look at these things that I have shared with you and try to explore them and apply them to you as you can handle that. But definitely try to have a different perspective and see your parents and remember that they are people who have a past too. It will be helpful to get them to try to share, but like I said, some are not willing to share because to admit to any issues with themselves means that something is wrong. They don't want to deal with it or can't handle that something is wrong. So it's just easier to make the problem about you. But this is about you getting to a place where you're no longer seeking their approval of who you are as a person and what you do in life. You are taking ownership of your individuality and living your life from a powerful personal place. As always, stay clit.